The escape pod hit the ground with a terrible crash. Metal screamed against rock. Glass shattered. Princess of the Empire felt her body slam against the safety restraints as the pod rolled 3 times before finally stopping. For a long moment she did not move. Her ears were ringing. Her vision was blurry. She could taste blood in her mouth. Slowly, she reached up and touched her forehead. Her fingers came away wet and purple with blood. The pod's emergency systems flickered and died. Smoke filled the small cabin. Knew she had to get out before the air became too toxic to breathe. She slammed her palm against the emergency release, and the hatch exploded outward. Cold air rushed in, crawled out of the ruined pod and collapsed onto soft ground. She looked up and saw something she had never seen before. Trees. Hundreds of them. Tall wooden structures covered in green leaves that stretched toward a blue sky. Birds sang somewhere in the distance. A gentle wind carried strange smells to her nose. She was on a planet, a wild, uncontrolled planet. Tried to stand, but her legs gave out beneath her. She had suffered injuries during the crash. Her left arm hung at a wrong angle. Several of her ribs felt broken. She needed medical attention, but her pod's medical systems were destroyed. She remembered what had happened. Her transport ship had been traveling through the outer regions of the Empire when the engines suddenly failed. Sabotage. She had known immediately. Her political rivals had finally made their move. They had tried to kill her and make it look like an accident. She had barely reached the escape pod in time. The navigation system had been damaged in the explosion, and the pod had carried her to the nearest habitable planet. She had no idea where she was. Activated her wrist communicator and checked the planetary data. When she read the results, her purple blood turned cold. Earth, she was on Earth. Every child learned about Earth in school. It was classified as a Category 7 death world, one of the most dangerous planets in the known galaxy. The gravity was crushing. The weather was violent and unpredictable. The wildlife was aggressive and deadly. The dominant species, called humans, were considered primitive but extremely dangerous. The Empire had avoided Earth for 500 years. No colony ships, no research teams, no contact of any kind. The planet was simply too hazardous. And now was stranded here, injured and alone. She tried to activate her distress beacon, but the device sparked and smoked. Damaged. She could repair it if she had the right tools and enough time, but that would take weeks. Until then, she was trapped on this horrible world. Forced herself to crawl away from the smoking escape pod. She needed to find shelter. She needed to find water. She needed to survive long enough to call for rescue. The forest around her was beautiful but terrifying. Every shadow could hide a predator. Every sound could signal danger. She had no weapons, no supplies, and no knowledge of this environment. On her, she had servants to bring her food and guards to protect her. Here, she had nothing. She crawled for what felt like hours. The sun moved across the sky and the temperature began to drop. Her injuries were getting worse. She was losing blood. Her vision was becoming dark at the edges. Finally, she could go no further. She collapsed against the base of a large tree and closed her eyes. This was how she would die, not in battle, not of old age, but alone on a primitive planet bleeding out in a forest. She heard footsteps approaching, heavy footsteps, human footsteps. Tried to raise her head, but she was too weak. She could only watch as 2 figures emerged from the trees. The first was a large male human with gray hair and a weathered face. He carried a long metal tube over his shoulder, some kind of primitive weapon. The second was a smaller female, younger, with brown hair tied back in a tail. The humans stopped when they saw her. The male raised his weapon, pointing it at her. The female gasped and grabbed his arm. "Dad, wait," the young female said. "She's hurt." "I can see that," the male replied. His voice was deep and cautious. "But I've never seen anything like her before. Look at her skin, look at her eyes." Knew she looked strange to them. Her skin was pale lavender. Her eyes were large and silver. Her ears were pointed and swept back against her head. She was clearly not human. "Please," she managed to say. Her translation implant was still working, converting her words into the local language. "I mean no harm. I am injured. I need help." The humans looked at each other. Some kind of silent communication passed between them. Then the male lowered his weapon and approached slowly. "My name is Cole Bradley," he said. "This is my daughter. We live nearby. Can you walk?" Tried to stand again, but her body refused. Cole handed his weapon to and knelt beside the alien princess. Without hesitation, he lifted her into his arms as if she weighed nothing. Was shocked. On her world, no one touched royalty without permission. But here, this human stranger was carrying her through the forest like she was a wounded animal. She wanted to protest, but she was too weak. They walked for a long time. The forest eventually opened into a clearing where a small wooden structure stood. A cabin, realized. A primitive dwelling made of dead trees. Cole carried her inside and laid her on a soft surface. A bed, rushed around the cabin gathering supplies, bandages, clean water, some kind of medicine. We need to stop the bleeding, Cole said. He examined her wounds with careful hands. This arm is broken. I can set it, but it's going to hurt. Not that she had endured pain before. She could endure it again. Cole worked quickly and efficiently. He cleaned her wounds, set her broken arm, and wrapped her ribs. His movements were practiced, like he had done this many times before. Assisted him, handing him tools and supplies without being asked. When it was done, felt slightly better. The bleeding had stopped. The pain was still there, but it was manageable. "Thank you," she whispered. "You're welcome," Cole replied. "Now, you want to tell us who you are and how you ended up in our forest." Hesitated, should she reveal her true identity? On her world, she was royalty. Here, she was nothing, just another creature struggling to survive. "My name is," she said finally. "I am from a planet very far away. My ship was sabotaged and I crashed here. I need to repair my communication device so I can call for rescue. It may take several weeks." Cole and exchanged another look. "Several weeks," repeated. "On Earth, in the middle of hunting season with winter coming." Did not understand the concern in the young human's voice. But she would learn. In the days ahead, she would learn exactly why they had classified this planet as a death world. And she would learn why humans were the most terrifying creatures in the galaxy. 1 week had passed since crashed on Earth. Her wounds were healing, but her spirit was not. Every day brought new horrors. The planet seemed determined to kill her in 100 different ways. The temperature changed constantly, swinging from cold mornings to warm afternoons and back to freezing nights. Rain fell from the sky without warning, soaking everything. Thunder shook the cabin walls and made hide under her blankets like a frightened child. And then there were the animals. On the third day, had looked out the window and seen a massive brown creature walking through the clearing. It stood taller than Cole and weighed at least 5 times as much. Its body was covered in thick fur, and its mouth was filled with sharp teeth. "What is that?" had screamed. "Just a bear," had replied casually. "He comes through here sometimes, looking for food before winter." Just a bear. The humans spoke about these monsters like they were nothing, like sharing a planet with such creatures was completely normal. Spent most of her time inside the cabin, working on her damaged distress beacon. The device needed new components that she did not have. She was trying to build replacements from materials she found in the cabin, but progress was slow. Her hands shook every time thunder rolled across the sky. The humans, meanwhile, went about their daily routines without fear. Cole left the cabin each morning with his weapon and returned in the evening with reports of what he had seen in the forest. Cooked meals, cleaned the cabin, and checked on regularly. The meals were the worst part. The humans ate dead animals. They killed creatures, cut them into pieces, and cooked them over fire. The smell filled the cabin constantly, refused to eat any of it. "You need protein," Cole told her on the 7th day. "You're not going to heal properly if you don't eat." "I cannot eat dead flesh," replied. "On my world we grow our food in laboratories. It is clean and pure. What you eat is barbaric." Cole stared at her for a long moment, then he shrugged. "Suit yourself, but our supplies are limited. We live off the land out here. If you don't eat what we eat, you're going to starve." Was less patient. The young human had been excited to meet an alien at first, asking endless questions about her planet and her people. But after a week of complaints and refusals, her patience was running thin. "You act like you're better than us," said one evening. "Like we're the primitive ones, but we're not the ones who crashed a spaceship in the middle of nowhere." Wanted to argue, but she knew the girl was right. She was helpless here, completely dependent on these humans for survival. Her royal status meant nothing on this planet. The next morning, Cole made an announcement. "Hunting season started yesterday," he said. "I'm going out to track some deer. You're coming with me." Stared at him in horror. "What? No, I cannot go out there. It is too dangerous." "That's exactly why you need to come," Cole replied. "You're scared of everything because you don't understand anything. The best way to stop being scared is to learn. Tried to protest, but Cole was already handing her a warm jacket and a pair of boots. Watched from the kitchen with a small smile on her face. The forest was cold and damp. Mist hung between the trees, making everything look ghostly and strange. Stayed close behind Cole, jumping at every sound. Cole moved through the trees with silent confidence. He seemed to know exactly where to step to avoid making noise. He read signs in the environment that could not see. Broken branches, footprints in the mud, marks on tree bark. "Deer came through here last night," he said quietly. 3 of them, 2 adults and a young one. They were heading toward the stream. "How can you possibly know that?" whispered. Cole pointed at the ground. "Tracks. See how the prints are deeper on the left side. That means they were carrying more weight on that leg, probably because they were looking to the right, watching for predators." Looked at the faint impressions in the mud. She saw nothing but dirt, but Cole saw a story written in the earth. They followed the trail for hours. Cole taught her how to move quietly, how to use the wind to hide her scent, how to watch for signs of danger. He explained which plants were safe to eat and which ones were poisonous. He showed her how to find water by watching where birds flew in the morning. All of this knowledge existed in his head. No computers, no technology, just generations of experience passed down from parent to child. In the afternoon, they encountered danger. Smelled it first, a musky, predatory scent that made her freeze in terror. Cole stopped beside her and slowly raised his weapon. A large cat emerged from behind a boulder. It was beautiful and terrible, golden fur, powerful muscles, eyes that locked onto like she was prey. "Mountain lion," Cole whispered. "Don't run. Running triggers their chase instinct." Legs were shaking. Every instinct in her body was screaming at her to flee. But Cole stood perfectly still, so she forced herself to do the same. Cole raised his arms above his head, making himself look larger. He spoke in a loud, firm voice. "Get out of here. Go on, move." The mountain lion watched them for an endless moment. Then, slowly, it turned and disappeared back into the forest. Collapsed against a tree, gasping for breath. "How did you do that? How did you face that creature without fear?" "I was afraid," Cole admitted. "Fear is natural, fear keeps you alive. But you can't let fear control you, you have to control it." They continued the hunt. An hour later, Cole spotted the deer they had been tracking. He raised his rifle, aimed carefully, and fired a single shot. The animal fell instantly. Cole approached the fallen deer and knelt beside it. To his surprise, he bowed his head and spoke quietly. "Thank you for your life. I promise it won't be wasted." Then he looked up at, "Now comes the hard part. We need to get this meat back to the cabin before nightfall, and you're going to help." Looked at the dead animal. 12 hours ago she would have refused, but something had changed inside her. She had walked through the forest. She had faced a predator. She had seen how humans survived on this death world. They did not have superior technology. They did not have protective force fields or climate-controlled environments. They had only their knowledge, their courage, and their will to survive. Stepped forward and grabbed the deer's hind legs. Cole smiled. "Good," he said. "Now let's go home." The deer hung from a wooden frame behind the cabin. Watched as Cole sharpened his knife against a flat stone. The metal made a sound that set her teeth on edge, but she did not look away. "First, we need to skin it," Cole explained. "The hide can be used for leather. Nothing gets wasted." He made his first cut with practiced hands, forced herself to watch. On her world, food appeared on plates, clean, perfect, ready to eat. She had never thought about where it came from or how it was made. Came out of the cabin with a large bucket. "I got the salt and the spices ready. How big is this one?" "Good size," Cole replied. "Should give us meat for a couple of weeks at least." They worked together like a team that had done this many times before. Cole removed the hide and set it aside. Then he began to separate the meat into different sections, labeled each piece and placed them in containers. Stood to the side, feeling useless. "Is there something I can do?" Cole looked up from his work. "You can start preparing the smokehouse. We'll show you how." The smokehouse was a small wooden structure behind the main cabin. Inside, metal racks lined the walls, and a fire pit sat in the center. The whole thing smelled like old smoke and wood. "Smoking meat is one of the oldest preservation methods humans have," explained. "We figured it out thousands of years ago, long before we had electricity or refrigerators." "How does it work?" asked. The smoke contains chemicals that kill bacteria and prevent decay. The low heat dries out the meat slowly. When it's done right, smoked meat can last for months without going bad. Was impressed despite herself. Her people had developed similar technology only 3 centuries ago, and it required significant energy to operate. Humans had discovered the same principle thousands of years in the past using nothing but fire and observation. We need to build a small fire first, continued. Not too hot, we want smoke, not flames. She showed how to arrange the wood in the fire pit. Small pieces at the bottom, larger pieces on top. Then she added handfuls of wood chips soaked in water. The wet chips create more smoke, she explained. Different types of wood give different flavors. Hickory is classic, apple wood is. Dad prefers mesquite, but it can be too strong for some people. Had never thought about food having different flavors based on how it was prepared. On her world, food was designed to provide nutrition. Flavor was almost an afterthought. Cole brought over the first batch of meat. The venison had been cut into long, thin strips and coated in a mixture of salt and spices. The salt draws out moisture and helps preserve the meat, he explained. The spices add flavor and also have some preservative properties. This recipe has been in my family for 4 generations. Took one of the strips and hung it carefully on the metal rack. The meat was cold and slippery, but she did not flinch. She was determined to learn. They worked for hours, preparing all the meat and arranging it in the smokehouse. By the time they finished, the sun was setting and arms were sore. She had never done so much physical work in her entire life. Now we wait, said. The meat needs to smoke for at least 2 days. Someone has to check the fire every few hours to make sure it doesn't go out or get too hot. That evening they sat around a fire pit outside the cabin. The temperature had dropped and wrapped herself in a thick blanket. Above them, the sky was filled with more stars than she had ever seen on her light-polluted. Tell me about your people, Cole said. Though what are they like? Hesitated. Then she decided there was no reason to hide anything. We are an old civilization, she began. We have traveled among the stars for over 10,000 years. We have conquered dozens of worlds and built a great empire. Our technology is far beyond anything on Earth. Conquered, Cole repeated. You mean you take over other planets, other species? Yes, it is how we expand, how we grow stronger. Frowned. What happens to the people who already live on those planets? They become part of the empire. They are given new homes, new jobs, new identities. Their old cultures are erased. Their old languages are forbidden. They become in all but blood. The humans were silent for a long moment. The fire crackled between them. That sounds terrible, said finally. Nodded slowly. I used to believe it was necessary. I used to believe that our way was the only way, but I have been traveling to the conquered worlds. I have seen what we have done, and I have started to question whether it is right. She took a deep breath. That is why I was sabotaged. I have been speaking out against our expansion policies. I have been arguing that conquered peoples should be allowed to keep their cultures, their languages, their identities. My political rivals see me as a threat. They tried to kill me to silence my voice. Cole nodded slowly. People on Earth have fought and died for the same ideas: freedom, self-determination, the right to live according to your own beliefs. We call it liberty. Liberty, repeated. The word felt strange on her tongue but also right somehow. My grandfather fought in a war for liberty, Cole continued. His father fought in a different war, and his father before him. Every generation of humans has had to fight for freedom in some way. It's never easy, it's never safe, but it's always worth it. Looked into the fire. She had grown up in a palace surrounded by servants and luxury. She had never known hardship or struggle. But these humans, living in a tiny cabin in the wilderness, understood something she was only beginning to learn. Survival was not about comfort, it was about purpose. Got up and went to check on the smokehouse. When she returned, she was carrying a small piece of dried meat from an earlier batch. Try this, she said, holding it out too. It's venison jerky from last month's hunt. Looked at the meat. A week ago, she would have refused in disgust, but now she took the piece and put it in her mouth. The flavor was unlike anything she had experienced, smoky and salty and rich. The texture was chewy but satisfying. It was simple food, made with simple methods, but it was delicious. This is wonderful, she admitted. Cole smiled. Welcome to Earth, princess, where the food is dead and the hospitality is warm. Laughed. It was the first time she had laughed since crashing on this planet, and for the first time she felt like she might actually survive. The storm came without warning. Was working on her distress beacon when she heard the first rumble of thunder. She looked up and saw dark clouds rolling across the sky like an invading army. The wind picked up suddenly, bending the trees and sending leaves flying in all directions. "Get inside," Cole called from across the clearing. "Now." They barely made it to the cabin before the rain began. It did not fall gently like the light showers had experienced before. It crashed down in sheets so thick she could barely see the smokehouse 20 feet away. Lightning flashed across the sky. Thunder shook the walls. The wind howled like a living creature trying to tear the cabin apart. Pressed herself into a corner of the room and covered her ears. This was it. This was how the planet would finally kill her, not with predators or poison, but with the raw violence of weather. "Hey, it's okay," said, sitting down beside her. "It's just a storm. We get these all the time." "All the time?" The voice was shaking. "How do you survive this all the time?" "The cabin was built to handle it. My great-grandfather built the original structure almost 80 years ago. Dad has reinforced it over the years. See how thick the walls are. And the roof is angled so rain runs off instead of pooling on top." Looked around the cabin with new eyes. She had thought it was a primitive dwelling, barely better than a cave. But now she saw the careful construction, the way the logs fit together to block wind, the stone foundation that raised the floor above potential flooding, the heavy shutters that protected the windows from debris. Every part of this structure was designed for survival. "What about the smokehouse?" asked. "Will the meat be ruined?" Cole shook his head. "I positioned it on high ground away from where water collects, and the fire pit is protected by a stone shelter. The meat will be fine." The storm raged for 2 days. During that time, the power went out completely. Cole lit candles and oil lamps, cooked meals on a wood-burning stove. They played card games and told stories to pass the time. On the second night, finally told them the full truth. "I'm not just any," she said quietly. "I am princess of the imperial house, third in line for the throne." Cole stared at her in surprise. "A real princess?" asked. "Yes, although I do not feel like royalty anymore. Here, I am just another creature trying to survive." "Why were you really sabotaged?" Cole asked. "The full story." Took a deep breath. "My people have a tradition called the integration. When we conquer a new world, we erase everything that came before. Languages, religions, art, history. We believe that unity requires uniformity. That peace requires the elimination of difference." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "For most of my life, I accepted this as truth. But 5 years ago, I visited a recently conquered world called. I saw children being taken from their parents and sent to integration camps. I saw ancient temples being demolished. I saw people being punished for speaking their native language." Tears formed in her silver eyes. "I realized that we were not bringing peace. We were committing cultural genocide. We were murdering civilizations while keeping the bodies alive." The cabin was silent, except for the wind outside. "I began to speak out," continued. "Quietly at first, then more loudly. I argued that conquered peoples should be allowed to maintain their identities, that integration should be voluntary, not forced, that diversity could strengthen the empire rather than weaken it." "Let me guess," Cole said. "The people in power didn't appreciate that." "No, they called me a traitor, a dangerous radical. They said I was undermining the foundations of civilization. And when my words began to reach the common people, when others started to agree with me, my rivals decided to silence me permanently." Reached out and took's hand. The gesture surprised the princess, physical comfort from a near stranger. It was so human. "What you're fighting for sounds a lot like what humans have fought for throughout our history," Cole said. "Freedom, the right to be yourself, the right to keep your culture and traditions." "Millions of humans have died for those ideas," added, "and millions more have suffered, but we've never stopped fighting." Looked at these 2 humans who had saved her life. A retired warrior and his daughter living alone in the wilderness. They had nothing by standards, no advanced technology, no political power, no wealth. But they had something her people had lost long ago. They had conviction. They had values they were willing to defend. They had courage that came not from strength but from belief. "If you believe in your cause," Cole said, "then you can't give up just because powerful people want to stop you. That's when you have to fight hardest." "But I am alone," said. "Even if I return to the Empire, I have no allies, no supporters. My rivals control the government, the military, the media. What can one person do against all of that?" "Everything," Cole replied. "One person can do everything. Change doesn't start with armies or governments. It starts with one person saying no. One person standing up when everyone else sits down. One person speaking the truth when everyone else is silent." He leaned forward, his eyes intense. "You're not alone. You have supporters you don't even know about. People who think like you but are too scared to speak. When you return, when you raise your voice again, they'll hear you. And some of them will find their courage too." The storm continued to rage outside, but inside the cabin, something shifted. Felt a warmth spreading through her chest that had nothing to do with the fire. She had crashed on Earth expecting to die. Instead, she had found teachers, friends, allies. The storm ended the next morning. Stepped outside to find the world transformed. Trees had fallen. The creek had risen and flooded part of the clearing. Debris was scattered everywhere. But the cabin stood strong. The smokehouse was untouched, and the smoked meat inside was perfectly preserved. Looked up at the clearing sky and made a decision. When she returned to the Empire, she would not be silent. She would not hide. She would fight for what she believed in, no matter the cost. These humans had survived on a death world for thousands of years through sheer determination. Surely she could find that same determination within herself. 3 weeks had passed since crashed on Earth. She barely recognized herself anymore. Her lavender skin had darkened from exposure to sunlight. Her muscles, once soft from a lifetime of luxury, had grown firm from daily work. Her hands, which had never held anything heavier than a ceremonial scepter, now bore calluses from chopping wood and preparing meat. But the biggest changes were invisible. She had learned to start a fire using nothing but wood and friction. She had learned to track animals through the forest by reading signs in the environment. She had learned to face her fears instead of running from them. She had even killed her first deer, a clean shot that Cole praised as excellent for a beginner. Most importantly, she had learned to smoke and preserve meat. She knew which woods gave the best flavor. She knew how to prepare the dry rub of salt and spices. She knew how to maintain the perfect temperature in the smokehouse for days at a time. These were skills her ancestors might have possessed millions of years ago, before the developed technology. Skills that had been lost to time and progress. Now they lived again in the hands of an alien princess. The distress beacon was finally repaired. Had spent every spare moment working on it, building replacement components from whatever materials she could find. Cole had even contributed parts from an old radio he kept in the basement. She activated the beacon at dawn and sent her distress signal into space. Then she waited. The response came within hours. A rescue ship had detected her signal and was on its way. It would arrive before nightfall. Should have been relieved. She was going home. She would have medical care, comfortable quarters, and protection from the dangers of this death world. But as she watched Cole and go about their daily routines, she felt only sadness. She had come to love this place. The forest with its endless wonders, the cabin with its sturdy walls, the humans with their warm hearts and endless courage. "The ship will be here soon," she told them over lunch. "I should begin preparing." Cole nodded. "We'll help you carry your things to the clearing." "I do not have many things," admitted. "Just the clothes you gave me and the parts of my escape pod. Everything else was destroyed in the crash." Looked at her father, and some unspoken communication passed between them. Then Cole stood and walked to a cabinet in the corner of the room. He returned with 2 objects. The first was a small leather pouch. The second was a knife with a wooden handle. "This is for you," Cole said, holding out the pouch. "It's venison jerky from the deer you helped hunt and smoke. Should last you a few weeks if you ration it." Took the pouch carefully. It weighed almost nothing, but it felt like the heaviest gift she had ever received. "And this," Cole continued, holding out the knife, "belonged to my grandfather. He carried it through 3 wars. It saved his life more times than he could count. I want you to have it." Stared at the knife in shock. "I cannot accept this. It is a family heirloom." "That's exactly why I want you to take it," Cole replied. "So you'll remember us. So you'll remember what you learned here. And so you'll have a piece of Earth with you when you go back to fight for what's right." Tears streamed down his face. She had cried when her ship was sabotaged. She had cried during the storm. But those had been tears of fear and despair. These were tears of gratitude and love. She took the knife and held it against her chest. "Thank you, both of you, for everything." Hugged her tightly. "You're going to change things, I know it. Those people who tried to kill you are going to regret the day they sent you to Earth." "I hope you are right," said. "But even if I fail, I will never regret crashing on this planet. It was the best thing that ever happened to me." The rescue ship arrived at sunset. It descended from the sky in a beam of light, landing in the clearing where its escape pod had crashed 3 weeks before. The design was sleek and elegant, everything that human technology was not. A squad of soldiers emerged first, weapons drawn. They were followed by a medical officer and a diplomatic aide. All of them stopped in shock when they saw the princess. Understood their surprise. She was wearing human clothes. Her hair was braided in a human style. She was carrying a primitive knife and a pouch of dried meat. She looked nothing like the refined princess they had expected to find. "Your Highness," the aide stammered, "are you injured? Did the natives harm you?" "I am perfectly healthy," replied, "and the natives did not harm me. They saved my life." She turned to face Cole and one last time. The human stood at the edge of the clearing, watching the alien ship with wide eyes. Even after everything they had seen and done, this was still remarkable to them. Walked to them and bowed deeply, a gesture of respect that she had never offered to anyone outside the imperial family. "I will never forget you," she said, "either of you. When I return to the Empire, I will fight for the things you taught me: freedom, self-determination, the right of every people to keep their culture and traditions." "And if you ever get tired of galactic politics," Cole said with a slight smile, "there's always a place for you here. We could use another hand during hunting season." Laughed through her tears. "I may take you up on that someday." She embraced them both one more time. Then she turned and walked toward the rescue ship. The soldiers and aides watched her approach with confusion on their faces. Who was this strange creature who looked like their princess but carried herself like a warrior? Who had the gentle hands of a hunter and the determined eyes of a revolutionary? Stopped at the base of the ship's ramp and turned back one final time. Cole and raised their hands in farewell. She raised her own hand in return. Then she boarded the ship. The diplomatic aide approached her nervously. "Your Highness, the Council has been informed of your survival. They are eager to hear your report on what happened." "I have much to tell them," replied. "But first, I want to make something very clear. The humans of Earth are not to be disturbed. They are not to be studied, contacted, or conquered, ever. Your Highness, they are the most remarkable species I have ever encountered. They survive on a death world through knowledge and courage alone. They preserve their food with smoke and fire. They face predators without flinching. They build shelters that can withstand storms that would destroy our habitats." She looked down at the knife in her hand and the pouch of meat at her side. "And they are kind. They saved a stranger who crashed in their forest, asked nothing in return, and taught her skills that her own people forgot millions of years ago. The Empire has much to learn from them." The aide bowed his head. "I will convey your wishes to the Council." The ship lifted off and climbed toward the stars, watched through a viewing port as Earth grew smaller beneath them. The blue and green world that had almost killed her, the planet that had saved her instead. She would return someday. She would walk through those forests again. She would sit by the fire with Cole and tell them stories of the changes she had fought for. But first, she had a galaxy to change. And she would not stop until every conquered people had the freedom the humans had taught her to value. Princess of the Empire clutched her hunting knife and her pouch of smoked meat. She was ready to begin.